Also joining me now for this discussion, CNN safety analyst David Susi. He's a former FAA safety inspector, and CNN aviation analyst Mary Schiavo. She's a former inspector general for the Department of Transportation. Thanks for joining us. Mary, let me start with you. This plane had 2 prior stops, but then, of course, after landing in France, had a security sweep, specifically in Paris, before this doomed flight. Since investigators are working on the working assumption, on the hypothesis that this appears to have been terrorism, that's the most likely theory, how easily could someone have planted a bomb on the plane after this mandatory security sweep, after touching down in Paris?
Well, and it also depends on what kind of a bomb. There's sort of 2 different vectors, of course. There was anybody who would be loading the bags on the plane, who would be doing any of the maintenance on the plane, et cetera. When the plane comes into the airport, and this is based on U.S. standards, because the U.S., remember, it required enhanced security back in 2014 because of these new, less detectable bombs that were being developed by AQAP. And then at that time, the plane has to be swept when it comes in. They look in everything. They look in the cupboards. They look in the various carts. They seal off the trash bins in the bathroom. They look in the cargo holds. It's quite extensive, but that's a requirement for each of the flights bound for the U.S. It can be different, and it varies country by country. And so once that sweep happens, then they start boarding the plane and they put the baggage on. So all of the workers that do those functions would still have access to the plane. And remember, the U.S. concern for enhancing security out of Paris and other European airports to the U.S. in 2014 were these bombs that were liquid that would be concealed in laptops and cell phones. And so the enhanced security included turning on all your electronics, and you couldn't board with one that didn't turn on.
Richard, since authorities are becoming so well versed on the kinds of bombs that are being devised in order to prevent them from getting on the plane. We saw this more than a decade ago with attempted shoe bomber Richard Reed, not to mention attempted underwear bomber Abdul Muttalib. If there were a device brought onto the plane, are there specific places where it would be more damaging?
Oh, absolutely, no question about it. You know, if you're going to put God forbid, you're going to put a bomb on a plane, you want to get it at the structurally weakest point of the aircraft, and also as close as you possibly could, for example, to the fuel tanks, which is why, for instance, the Metrojet bomb was so significant, because in that case, it's believed to have come on board in a soda can, and it was detonated over the wing. And of course, it's the fuel tanks are in the wings themselves, and the belly tank of the aircraft. So yes, if you're wanting to bring down the aircraft, that's the place that you aim for. However, one does need to point out, you know, it's not as straightforward as that, because these aircraft are built to withstand some pretty phenomenal forces that they will take just in the normal course of aviation. The Somalia example we spoke about earlier is a good example of just how much force they can take. But if you blow up the fuel, that's a different matter. In the case of the aircraft, this plane went to Eritrea and it went to Tunis, and it then went back through Cairo, where it should have been swept and sealed before going up to Paris. And since it was in an EU airport, entering an EU airport from a non-EU destination, it should have been swept, and all the cupboards, panels should have been resealed by the crew who would have inspected them. This is what European airlines would have done before the plane would have departed. So the aircraft itself is one aspect to it, Jake. The question, as Mary rightly points out, what passengers or others may have put on the aircraft is something else.
And David, go into more detail, if you could, about what exactly is happening to that airplane after arriving from a non-EU country into Paris during that security sweep. How extensive would that be?
Well, there's some question about that. Again, Mary had brought that up as to various countries have different requirements. If it's going into the U.S., of course, it gets a very detailed sweep, but the requirements going into the country or before it leaves again, that's what determines how much depth they go into. So if you walk into the aircraft and you look under, of course they do the regular things that they do. They check each of the seats, they check under all the seats, but there's some hidden areas as well that you can get into, and I'm not at liberty to go too much into detail of those things, but the fact is that there are areas that are hidden, but we're well aware of those. If there's anything accessible, if there's a way to get something even as small, as Richard pointed out, even as small as a can, a small pop can, those areas are searched very well and they're drugged through the entire process. Now, how well they carried them out as individuals in the crew after already have taken 2 flights, that can be where there's some weakness there, and that's what I would be concerned about.
All right, Richard, Paul, David, Mary, thanks so much.